Okay, there's something about HDDs, hard drives, that are really, really nostalgic. So I'm gonna put this up to the mic on my head and I'll let you hear it. Can you hear that? The sound of a hard drive is kind of nostalgic. Now I know SSDs are far superior. They are silent, yes, but the sound of a hard drive is still pretty nostalgic to me. I'll let you hear it again. It's so nostalgic for sound. So nostalgic for sound. That's one thing I can relate to hard drives, that they're so nostalgic for sound. Like, yes, SSDs are far more superior. So I have my 7 SSD here, but there is no moving components, just a NAND flash chips. So this is very silent. But if you miss the hard drive spin up, it's very nostalgic when you hear it again. Because although, yes, SSDs are pretty good, you can't beat the sound of a hard drive. You can't beat the sound of a hard drive. It's very nostalgic. Very nostalgic. Plus, when you put your hand on it, you can actually feel it vibrate. It's very, very nostalgic for what's worse. Like, hard drives, so nostalgic for sound. So nostalgic for sound whenever you hear it. It's so nostalgic for sound. Yeah, most people agree that the sound of a hard drive is pretty nostalgic. Pretty nostalgic, because especially when you grow up with computers that used to use hard drives, and before SSDs came out, or just SSDs were early technologies and were not that reliable. So, like, when SSD came out, when Windows 7 was out, they were not as reliable as a hard drive. So, at that time, and plus, they were much more expensive originally. Yes, for sure. So, you were still using hard drives in most computers. So, yeah. But now, since they got cheaper and much more reliable, people just miss the spin up of a hard drive. People just miss the spin up and the sound of a hard drive. So, yes, SSDs are cheaper and faster. They're not as durable because the chips on these have a limited write endurance compared to drive platters on a hard drive. So, like, this, you should not rely on this for your data. You shouldn't be relying on it, because although, yes, they are faster and seem to be reliable, the chips inside only handle limited write endurance. It only has a limited write endurance in them. So you do not want to fully rely on them for your data. You do not want to fully rely on that. So hard drives are much more better. Like yes, if you leave them off for a while and you turn them back on, your data's still gonna be there. And plus, if your SSD fails, data transfer from this is near impossible. Near impossible for data transfer from this SSD. Nearly impossible. However, for hard drive, data transfer from a platter is possible. So data transfer on this one's possible because you can get it from the platters itself. So this one's very easy. So not on this one, because if the controller of the SSD fails, it's basically impossible to transfer your data from this when the controller has failed. So yeah, don't rely on these for your long-term storage options. Stick with a hard drive for long-term storage. So although SSDs are very durable, yes, there is one detail we're forgetting. So I'm going to take this off a little closer. So if you see this chip here, these are the NAND chips. There's two here as well, and then under here will be the controller chip. So even though SSDs are pretty reliable now, there's one caveat of SSDs, is that don't really rely on these for your long-term storage options. Use a hard drive for long-term storage options, because if this is unpowered for a while, you may lose your data. Just saying. The NAND chips also have a limited read-write endurance as well. So, because what I've seen in libraries is that since the new computers now have the SSDs and they're using defreeze with it, the problem with it is that when you write with defreeze, it creates a virtual partition that's invisible to the computer. Basically, it just freezes the entire partition. So any data is going to be casted to an invisible virtual partition, and when you continue writing gigabytes of data to the drive, eventually it will fail. Now hard drives, they're not optimized for Windows 11 anymore. Like sure, they're not optimized for Windows. So, but they are better for long-term storage options because they can work in cold climates actually. And even servers still use hard drives, the highest enterprise grade speed hard drive. They do not use enterprise grade SSDs normally because hard drives, they last pretty long. They're like, sure, they're not good for like shocks. That's for sure. Like if you move it around, yeah, it's not gonna, while it's running, it's not gonna survive. So that's for sure. Like it's not shock protected. Sure, the SSDs are shock protected. Like sure, that's the case, but the only downfall of an SSD is that they don't last forever. They do not last forever. They can fail, and if the controller fails, then data transfer on this is completely impossible. So on a drive, if it fails, the data transfer is pretty much manageable if you can do from the platter itself. So, and they're pretty nostalgic for the sound and the vibration of the hard drive. Very nostalgic.